So if you are thinking about doing your first wedding as a solo shooter, stick around because I literally just did this on the 21st of August, and yeah, there's a few things to talk about. So we will go back in time to when I first started the business, and at that time I didn't know what niche I was really going to be going into, and I was approached by the couple to do a wedding, and I thought this was be a good way to find out whether or not this was for me. So we'll skip back to today, because obviously with COVID it took a long time for the actual wedding to happen, which was fine for me because it gave me more time to practice and prep. Now for this video we'll only be talking about the ceremony and the speeches, because I feel that the setup with the bride and the groom and the actual venue itself, that was relatively straightforward, and I just used the one camera and that went fine, so there was no issues there. That was relaxing. The ceremony and the actual speeches, now they were more stressful. I was more worried about the fact that I was going to miss a moment. So redundancy was the primary focus for the entire day. So I decided that I was going to go with 3 cameras. And in order to know where this would be positioned, I actually went to the venue and took a look at where the ceremony was going to be shot and where the speech is. So I had a really good understanding of where things would be positioned. Now, the ceremony room is not like a church hall where you can place cameras on the side. It was literally a small hall where the bride would walk down. So the safety cameras were at the back, and that's where I positioned those. So I had the GH5 and the G7 at the back. The reason the GH5 was at the back, because that was my main safety cam, because that camera has dual slots for the card, and that was recording a backup. The G7 was on a wide, which is what you're seeing now, which is a 12mm, which is 24 because of the crop factor. And then I used another camera, which was another G7 on a monopod. So the 2 at the back would cover the entire ceremony. So that would get the bride going down. It would get the first look from the actual groom, so I could make sure I got that. And then all I had to do was to make sure that with the actual monopod I could get the bride coming down, get the first kiss, and just film the ceremony. Now where the stress came in is from how relaxed the morning was. I was watching the clock all the time. Now the ceremony didn't start till 3, however it was so relaxed and it was so enjoyable, and it was so good in the morning that even though I was keeping an eye on my clock, period of time must have gone past where I just didn't notice it. And I literally only had 20 minutes to set the ceremony up. Now thankfully everything is at the same venue, but the panic set in because the room felt a lot tighter than it actually was, making sure that all the white balance, the exposure and everything was as best as I could get it. And that was stressful because one of the things I forgot to do was lav up the groom when the groom was getting ready. So that was another added factor. So when I went to put the lav on the groom, he was talking to the officiant. Now they were busy, so I couldn't do it then and then. But luckily I got everything sorted. So there is definitely a workflow issue that I need to fix in regards to when to mic the groom up and the officiant. The officiant was fine, she was lovely, and she was done at the right time. I couldn't have done that any sooner, but for the groom I could have done it when he was just finishing getting dressed. So there's a workflow issue there, which was fine, but it didn't help with the panic. Because of the 20 minutes, I didn't have time to change the 70 to 200 lens, which would have been on the back with the G5. That's where I wanted that lens. Instead, I had the 24 to 70, which would have been perfect on the monopod. But because I only had the 20 minutes, setting up 3 cameras, solo shooter, panicking, didn't have time to change it. So that's why the 24 to 70 is at the back. and I'm down the front hiding behind a plant with the 70 to 200, which was tight, and there was a few times where the focus was a little bit soft, and that was because I was right up against the back panel, and because I was so close I didn't have the monitor on and things looked blurry, but it was just my eyes. I'm 41 and I didn't think it was that much of a problem until I was like right there with the LCD. So that is another thing. So prep your ass off and make sure you keep an eye on the clock, because 20 minutes for a 3-cam setup is highly stressful. Just gonna put it out there. Now, in that in mind, I was like, I'm not going to make the same mistake with the speeches. So I had ample time to sort that out. Audio is key. So for everything, I was using 2 Tascam DR10Ls. The one was on the groom, which was picking up the bride, and then the other was on the officiant in the ceremony.
Okay, and now could you give Alex's ring? We get this right now this time. Alex's ring to Jasmine. No, the ring, there we are, Alex's, there we are. If you place it on his finger.
Alex.
Yes.
We started as best friends in college.
Now for the speeches, the groom still had his on, and all I had to do was mic up the father of the bride. When it was the best man's turn to speak, I put the Tascam on the best man, and the reason being is that the venue said they didn't have a PA system, which meant I didn't have a backup feed with a mic that I could plug in, because I bought all the cables. I've got the H6, which I could have done. 1 minute before they are doing the speeches, the venue then says, oh, we do have a PA system to the groom, would you like to use it? Well, of course they're going to use it. Now, what did that mean? It meant that it was lucky that I put everything on with the Tascam, with the groom and everything, but that was a little minor frustration. But the problem was that I set up a mic with the H6, because I took a microphone and everything I had that plugged in as the backup recording, and the spotlight that I used to light up the speeches, it was all designed around there. Now, because of that change, the people that were doing the speeches stayed where they were sitting, which is no problem at all, because doing speeches is highly stressful, and it's not something that you're going to be very forceful on. I just let it go because I knew I had the microphones. Now, the way that the cameras were set up, I had the 70 to 200 on the bride and groom. I got that sorted. I had the 24 to 70 on the monopod, and then the other camera then was doing the wide. For some reason, when I changed that lens, something was going on, but I was getting shake and jello on the monopod. Couldn't use the footage at all. So the 2 safety cams are what saved my ass, because I had one of the bride and groom so I could get his speech. And I had the wide camera then, which I could punch in because it was shot in 4K, to get the other speeches in of the father, the bride, and the actual best man. The only downside is that I was perfectly positioned with the monopod to capture the best man, because he was actually facing the bride and groom, but he had his back turned then to the other 2 cameras, as opposed to the father of the bride, who had his back to the bride and groom and faced everybody else, and the 2 safety cams caught him perfectly. So all in all, I was frustrated with the fact that I had the jello and everything. I don't understand. I think the lens support was slightly not touching the base of the lens, and it was just relying on the weight. And I was tired, so obviously there's going to be minor shakes, and it just amplified it. So that footage was completely unusable. So if you're going to do this, have backup cameras, have backups. That's the biggest thing, because if you're going to do this with one camera, be very, very warned, there's a lot of pressure on you getting everything right. By taking the 3 cameras, it saved me. It saved me a lot. Now, Does that mean you go out and buy the best 3 cameras you can afford? No. Most cameras can do 4K at 24 FPS, and those are your safety cameras, those are your backups, so you can do a wide and a little bit closer. The two G7s, they are 330 second hand, and that's what I've done. I bought 2 of those. So the whole reason why I got the task cams, because I was paranoid about not being able to capture audio, and they saved me. So for me, moving down the future, the more I can buy with the task cams, I'm going to get another 2 because they were a lifesaver. And that was it. Now the actual day, I really enjoyed. The ceremony was the one that really kicked my ass in regards to nerves. So be very, very mindful. If it's gonna go wrong, it will go wrong. So prepare as much as you can. That's the biggest takeaway from this, and try to enjoy it. Try to give yourself enough time. Do not leave yourself with 20 minutes to set up the ceremony. It's it's not fun. I'm just being honest, it's not fun. But I enjoyed it, and I'm gonna do it again, because everything that happened was a massive learning experience, and they are just workflow issues. But be prepared for people not to do what you want them to do during speeches. People might walk around. Now, even with the PA system, even if I had had a microphone plugged in, recording, doing everything, when people talk in the microphone, they're laughing, they're joking, they're telling a good story, and they're doing this and they're talking over there, and the mic is over here, so you're not going to capture that anyway. So had I relied just on recording the audio from the mic that they were holding, that would have gone tits up. So for me, lav microphones are the way to go as a safety and backup, and cover your arse in all aspects. Now, there is going to be a period where you're going to have to, if you've only got 2, I had to change it from the groom, not the groom, but from the father, the bride, to the actual best man. But I did that in under 30 seconds. I was down, changed it over, laved him up because I had those rye coat stickies. I just popped it off, put it on the best man, put it in his jacket. He sorted himself out. I went back to the monopod. Oh, way to go. But the monopod, well, not the monopod, but the lens or whatever I did with that, that was frustrating. That went tits up. So yeah, so it was highly stressful, but the edit and everything went really well, and I'm really happy with how I performed. I don't want to say how I performed, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. So if you like this content, please give me a thumbs up, and if you're going to do a wedding yourself, prepare. Redundancy. It's not about the best camera, it's having enough angles to cover your ass and enough audio sources that if you get into trouble, you'll be fine.